So a good way to see how messed up you are is an ACE score. An ACE score stands for Adverse Childhood Experience. And there's 3 types of ACEs, which are abuse, neglect, and household dysfunction. So I've included a quiz in the description below, so you can go and take the quiz. I think it's like 18 questions, if I'm thinking right. And it's basically a measure of projected long-term health issues. And there's also a great TED Talk in the description below that goes over trauma and the long-term effects on the body. There's a lot of long-term effects from these ACE scores. They've correlated it to everything from heart disease to addiction. But just because studies have shown that you have a higher rate of those things happening to you or you having health issues does not determine your future. It does not. You decide what you're willing to allow into your life. If you have a standard of high health and your mental health, your physical health, and your spiritual health are super important to you, then these things are not going to affect you. It's up to you. Whatever you decide is what you allow. So let's talk about therapies, where to get help, how to get help, what kind of help you might need. And my number one advice is get professional help. I have always had a professional helping me. Well, on and off for about 10 years, I have had professionals help me through everything. So counselors, psychologists. I'm sure that it is possible to heal your trauma on your own. But I mean, most of the time you need help. And it's okay. And therapy has saved my life more than one time. So never be afraid to ask for help. But some of the therapies include talk therapy, which in personal opinion, talk therapy is not great for trauma or traumatic experiences because you're basically just talking about it, bringing those feelings up, and then not doing anything with those feelings. So you leave more triggered than when you came. Personal experience, if talk therapy works for you, go right ahead. Cognitive behavioral therapy and cognitive processing therapy. So cognitive processing therapy is actually the first kind of therapy that I did, and it was extremely beneficial, especially I feel like if you have a really logical mind, because what you do is you weed out your core beliefs that you have about yourself, and especially those super negative ones. So for example, one of mine was, the main one, and pretty much everyone that I've worked with so far, the main issue is always not enoughness. I don't feel good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not skinny enough. I'm not pretty enough. It's always not enoughness. So what you can do though is write that out. So say, I'm not good enough. And then disprove all those reasons why that's not freaking true. You are good enough and you know you're good enough, but your brain is so stuck. So we create these neural nets in our brain, and it's basically like a truck driving through a field. There's no road there prior to them driving on the field, and they start driving through the field every single day. And eventually some grooves start to form. So their wheels just automatically go down that lane. No problem. That's exactly what happens in our brains. So that thought was programmed at some point that you're not good enough. And so now when you forget to pay the electric bill or you spill a cup of water, it can be very small, and your brain automatically starts punishing you. You're not good enough. You never were good enough. It takes that one small thing as proof that you were never good enough. And it's so not true. It's not true. Don't believe it. Your brain, the neural nets, they're going to tell you, they're going to say, no, this is the truth because this has been the truth for so long. This is what we've been talking about for years, however long it's been since that thought was programmed into you. So that's what's really good about CPT or cognitive processing therapy, because you can really start to identify those negative self-limiting beliefs and train your brain to not believe those anymore because they are not true. So EMDR, eye movement desensitization, and reprocessing is basically, so I did EMDR. That was the first therapy that I did before CPT, and it didn't work for me. It works for some people. I've heard that if you've had too much trauma, then your brain will actually block it out because it's like too much, which I don't know if that was the case for me, but it just, I didn't click with the doctor that I was seeing at the time. But basically what you do is you talk about the event, and then the doctor or whoever is performing the EMDR for you will basically have you follow their hands however they choose to throw them around. Well, there's more science to it than that. It's not just them like waving their hands around. But so you'll talk about the experience, and then they'll do their thing, and then you'll say from like a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling? And you will do that. You'll keep doing that. EMDR is a really effective treatment for a lot of people that have PTSD. So I'm not saying that it doesn't work. It works for a ton of people. So if that's your first route, that is a good route because there's been a lot of research done on EMDR. So if you're new to this and you're wanting to work with a professional to process trauma, I would probably reach out to someone that does EMDR or someone that does brain spotting. So brain spotting is my absolute favorite. It's my absolute favorite, and it has done the most for me than any other therapy. So basically what's really cool about our eyes is, so the center part of your brain, your amygdala, is where it's like your trauma center. So this is where all of like the memories and the triggering, like that's where that's happening. And it's crazy because there's actually like a projection from there through our eyes. So, and that's why EMDR is so effective. And there's actually been like optometrists that have told people to look in certain directions or something, and they've had like emotional releases just from like looking in a particular direction. So for some reason, there is a correlation between the trauma that you experience, what position your eyes are in, and that just allows you to process that trauma like super quick. So with brain spotting, what they do is you don't even have to talk about the experience, which I love because I don't want to keep talking about it. I've talked about it enough, haven't I? And so what you do is you go in and they're like, okay, is there something that you really want to work on today? And then you visualize that yourself. They can help guide you into that experience if you need it. But basically you call up a experience or a situation. Basically what they do is they take a pointer. So they'll have a long pointer and they will put it in certain directions and you'll follow it with your eyes. When you get to a specific point in your line of vision that emotion feels really intense and really strong, they'll stay there. So you stay there and you process out all of those emotions that you're feeling. So, and it comes in waves. And honestly, a lot of times it actually comes out in body movement. So brain spotting is actually a really somatic experience. And for me, body work and somatic experiencing is top tier because I can block out my emotions all day long, dissociate for days. But if I am forced to go into my body and deal with those areas that need my attention, that's what works for me the best. And I've also linked a book, the Brainspotting book, the guy that figured it all out, that came up with the Brainspotting method. He combined EMDR and like one other treatment thing, and then happened upon Brainspotting. Yeah, you can go and read that book, and if you're planning on doing Brainspotting, it's actually beneficial to read the book prior to your Brainspotting or like during your Brainspotting sessions, because it can enhance it. So, and then there's exposure therapy, which I don't really have an opinion on, because I mean, I guess, so when I had really bad anxiety, and I was actually agoraphobic for a while, like I didn't leave my house. When I started having seizures, I didn't leave my house for like probably, around a year. I couldn't go anywhere because everything was like super overstimulating. So, I mean, I remember going to the bowling alley once and having to wear earplugs and sunglasses because everything was just like way overstimulating, and I would have a seizure like immediately. So I was afraid to go anywhere, and a lot of people have this with like panic attacks. So if you have a panic attack, and I started having panic attacks really bad after the seizure stopped. So been there, done that as well. But basically, you know, you go into a situation and it triggers your anxiety, or it triggers a panic attack or a seizure in my case. And then you don't want to go to that place ever again because it triggered that in you, and you feel like every time you go back, it's going to keep happening. I feel like when I was really agoraphobic and I started trying to re-enter society after that, I had to push myself so intensely to be able to be a person that could go to Walmart or anything, to go anywhere and do anything. I mean, even driving was like I would just get the worst anxiety, but you just have to push yourself. You have to make yourself do it, because making yourself do it and proving to your brain that, okay, I've done this 5 times and nothing's happened, so I'm probably okay. I'm safe. You have to put yourself in those experiences, figure out that you are actually safe in those experiences, and that it's not going to cause anxiety every single time you do it, or a panic attack or whatever. You just keep pushing yourself and keep doing what you don't think that you can do, because you can. You can do it. I can't do it! And I believe in you. You can do it. Just push yourself a little bit. Don't make yourself unsafe. But you have to push yourself outside of your comfort zone, for sure. So psychodramas, or acting as if. So basically what you do is you pretend that the abuser or whoever you have a problem with is in the room with you, and you talk to them as if they are in the room with you. And you can do this, like I did this in group therapy. So when I was in college, I had a PTSD group therapy that I would go to, and we actually played out a psychodrama. So in that scenario, I was able to pick out people that played the role in the story that I was trying to recover from, and the things that I needed to say, and the anger and the sadness and the fear that needed to come out. So there's that, psychodramas. And then also group therapy. Group therapy is great because you're not alone, and it's so nice to hear people experiencing the same symptoms as you and just really feeling like you're not alone. You're not alone. So some things that you can do at home for yourself right now. Healthy lifestyle. Take care of yourself. You need to exercise, eat healthy, drink water, take your vitamins. And honestly, I would avoid processed sugar and caffeine for sure. If you're having anxiety, stop drinking caffeine. I'm not a doctor, so don't take this as like medical advice, but personally, when I was experiencing a lot of anxiety, it was like I would drink a caffeinated beverage, and then I would immediately have to take like a Klonopin to like even myself out, when I could just not have drank the caffeine in the first place. So just be mindful of that. If your anxiety is spiking right after you have a coffee or an energy drink, like pay attention to that, and don't put your body and your system in more stress than it needs to be in. Okay, so trauma release exercises. This is a lifesaver and it's so easy to do. I have included like 3 videos on TRE, trauma release exercises, in the description. So please go check those out, especially if you have a lot of trauma that you think is stored in your body. Because basically what you do is you do exercises to kind of wear out your muscles and your legs and stuff. And then you lay on a mat and you tremor. So you shake. You just let yourself shake. And a lot of times emotions will come up and there will be a really intense emotional release, and you can stop shaking at any point. I did this every day for like a month, and every time I did it, it was just like such a release. So there's also a video on this is what animals do in the wild. So there is a video of a polar bear getting tranquilized out of a helicopter. He falls down. And as soon as, and in the description, it's called Polar Bear Not Getting Traumatized. So he falls down and he immediately starts tremoring. So he's shaking, and then he goes into like really intense, deep, rhythmic breathing.
After he finishes convulsing, you'll see, because he's aware of the fact that we're all around him, and it's a very stressful experience for an animal like a polar bear. And after he settles down, and then he'll start doing a couple of deep breaths, and then he'll breathe really nicely, and it'll really, now go, here he goes. See how he's breathing there now?
So that's also what's going to happen to you. It's going to feel scary at first. It obviously does not feel natural. And you're going to be like, oh, I'm weird. It's weird, but it's not. Do it. Help yourself. And do it in the privacy of your own home. Like, I just go and do it in my bedroom. Of course, you know, it's great to have professional supervision. If you can find a professional in your area that can help lead you or guide you in the way that you need, or break you out of that mental weirdness of like feeling like it's weird to shake, or, you know, if I do that, then I'm crazy, which is just not the case at all. And as soon as you shake that stuff out, it's not there anymore. You can just breathe after that. It's so much easier. The anxiety is gone. Ugh, it's just so good. So please check out the trauma release exercise videos, TRE, in the description below if you're interested, because it would be very helpful for you. So of course there's medication. I was on medication for probably 2 or 3 years. I decided to get off because it affects me like way too intensely. I do still have some medication that I will take, or I'll take that like just a very, very small dose if my anxiety is like way too out of control and I'm past the point of being able to handle it on my own. Like after I've done meditation, breathing exercises, after I've done some physical exercise, like if there are no other options and I am just completely way too anxious, then I will take medication. Not saying that you shouldn't. Like I said before, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a licensed mental health professional, so do whatever is best for you. I'm not a huge fan of medicine, though. I think you can do it in natural ways if you want to. Inner child work is huge, especially if you have complex PTSD or childhood trauma. This is a game changer. And it's way too long to explain, but maybe I'll do a video on that in the future. But basically what you do is you bring that inner child forward and you basically ask what they need and provide those things. And most of the time it's comfort. They just want comfort. They want love. So there's that. And pets are a great way to receive love and comfort, especially if you're not able to trust people right now. And that's okay. But a pet will be there for you and they'll love you unconditionally no matter what. Psychedelics have been extremely beneficial for me. specifically mushrooms. I have taken mushrooms and also done the TRE, and that was extremely beneficial for me and my healing. They're not for everybody. Obviously, you should do this under a professional's guidance if you can, but I know that there are some people that are able to get this stuff, and if they can heal themselves, they definitely want to. So setting, and dosage is extremely important. If you don't have all three of those things, then you could not have a super great experience, especially if you're trying to deal with trauma. And if you're trying to deal with trauma, have someone there for you. You need support. You need people there with you. And I am not recommending that you do this without a professional person to help you through it. So another thing that I've found really helpful, especially if you have like a crazy adrenaline response all of a sudden, like going for a walk and this car honks its horn at you, like, or not at you, but like just honks its horn really loud. Something that you can do, and something that's been extremely beneficial for me, is you look around and say, okay, am I safe? If you are safe, then you bend over and shake it out. So you shake out that adrenaline that's inside of you. So I did this consistently for, probably just a couple weeks, and the adrenaline responses left. Like, I barely have adrenaline responses now. And when I do, I still do the, okay, am I safe? Look around. Yes, I am safe. And then I bend over at the waist and shake my arms and just try and get it out. You need to get it out, or else it's going to stay inside you and it's going to cause pain and other issues. So another thing that's great is energy healing. My favorite. So at the beginning of the video, I talked about the man that had called me, and it was really triggering. That was at the beginning of the week. So yesterday or the day before, I was able to do some energetic work with that. And basically what I did was put myself into a bubble, a white light bubble, and then his energy was really like attached to me, and it was black, and it had like a sharp point on the end. And this may be like way too woo-woo for some of you guys, and I totally understand, but this is where I'm at. So basically I'm pulling this energy out of me and just pulling and pulling and pulling, and I'm crying. I'm experiencing fear. I'm experiencing sadness, but mostly fear. And so I pull all of his energy out and send it off. He can have that back. I'm not attached to him anymore, or the experience that happened between us, or the conversation that we had. So energetically, he is away from me, and that's what I want. And so, but left over was still a lot of fear. And so what I did was I crafted like an energetic ball, and I might do a video on this later if you guys want me to. But basically, create a white light energetic ball. And then where I felt that fear in my body, I built up this ball, and then I give it back to myself and hold it there for a while. Take out that fear and just replace it with comfort, love, safety. And that's been really, really helpful for me. And this is just stuff that I've kind of made up. So do whatever feels right for you, always. So another great thing is PTSD Yoga. I will also include a video in the description below for something like that. It's supposed to be really beneficial. I've seen a lot of really good research on it. So I haven't tried it, but I will eventually, and I'll see if it's pretty good. But another good thing to do is just watch informational YouTube channels or videos like this one. Also, a few other really good ones are Crappy Childhood Fairy. She talks a lot about PTSD. She also had complex PTSD. So that's a very informational, and she's healed a lot of her stuff too. So she's got a lot of information about steps to take, how to heal. Another good person is Katie Morton. I believe that she's a licensed psychologist, but she is great. Any of her videos, both of those people and those channels will be linked below. And then read books. Read so many books on trauma that you are sick and tired of hearing about trauma. I have a ton of good books referenced in the description, but here are just a few, especially ones that have been extremely beneficial for me, is Waking the Tiger by Peter Levine. Anything by Peter Levine. He's phenomenal in the trauma world. Sexual Healing by Peter Levine. Complex PTSD by Pete Walker. The Body Keeps the Score. That's a classic book for trauma. And that's Bessel van der Kolk. And then I'll also have a link for Amazon's bestsellers for books on trauma and PTSD. Okay, well, that concludes my video on trauma, and I really hope that this was super, super helpful for anybody out there that's suffering, no matter how far you are in your trauma recovery or if you're just starting. I hope that this was helpful in some ways. Thank you guys so much for spending time with me and watching this video. And again, if you like this content, want to see more, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Tell me what you liked. Tell me what you might want more of. I would love to hear some feedback on this and start to really put out some content that is really helpful for people. That's the goal of this channel. It's always been the goal, is just to help as many people as I can with experiences that I've had and the knowledge that I've gained over the years doing my own work. Thank you again, and have a wonderful and magical day.